Hey everybody, I'm so pleased to welcome Karambar Singh here. We met at America Fest. He's a young man. His heart's on fire for his country and for freedom. Welcome, Karambar.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Karambar, since we're just getting acquainted, I'm going to play a real quick movie clip about getting acquainted.
Anyways, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Tell me, who is this Encarnacion?
Well, my favorite color is light tan. My favorite animal is puppies. I like serving the Lord, hiking, play volleyball.
You gotta be kidding me. Everything you just said is my favorite thing to do every day.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you're Sikh.
Yep.
You're
So
from northern India, I would assume.
yep. So I was born and raised in America. I was born in Boston, moved to Washington when I was 1, and then moved down to Arizona freshman year of high school. I'm 18, by the way. Don't look like it, but I know you know that. I just introduced myself. I signed with Valparaiso University on the 7th. So I'm going to go play football at a Division I school. I'm also done some research, and I'm going to be the first Sikh football player to go to Division I. I'm doing track right now. That's a little bit about my school life. Other than that, like you said, I'm on fire. It's not what's happening in the government right now is not right.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. You know, I have to say, at your age, I don't think I could have grown such an awesome beard. So kudos on the beard.
Thank you.
Yeah, you must have just an extra dose of manliness there. And man, it was so great to meet you. And I actually want to pull something up. I had it before. We had a little technical difficulty here, but I'm going to pull up a picture. So this is when we met at America Fest. And your friend, was it Kyle? I'm trying to remember his name.
Eli.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Eli. So young patriots plus an old guy there, but
Yeah.
Tell me about your shirt there. What does that say?
In the picture,
Yeah.
it's pure blood. So I actually got it at a booth at Amfest. And above that it says in Hebrew, pure blood. And when I asked the guy what it meant, he said, well, when you're born, you have nothing in your blood. You're clean and everything. And then the vaccine came out, all these boosters came out, and kind of infects you pretty much. And the meaning of that is that you're supporting none of that, like when the government pushed that out on us. And I kind of really like that message. It's a harder message to understand if you don't really know, but I was like, that's perfect. If people ask me, I'll 100% tell them.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit. It's so encouraging to see someone your age who's on fire for the country. You know, I hate labels, but for lack of a better label, conservative. Tell me what led you to be very concerned about your country and the present regime that's in power.
Well, I want to say it started like more in high school, freshman year. In middle school and elementary school, I was just a normal kid living, having fun, going, playing sports, doing normal things for a little younger kid to do. When I first came into high school, though, it was a shock, kind of not a shock, but it was like from online school because of COVID and everything shut down. And when you get back to school, you're like, well, what am I doing right now? It's a bunch of people walking around that shouldn't be walking around saying what the things they do. And then you kind of start digging into politics a little bit more, looking at what the government's doing. Me and my dad talk about it all the time, and I was like, well, this isn't right. And that kind of started getting me to go towards more political. I wouldn't say I'm political. I just I don't think what's happening is right, and I want to help change that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I never considered myself political, and I actually had to wake up to some things. You know, I was going about life, running a business, and I actually voted against Trump in 2016. I don't want to say for Hillary Clinton, but I had all these media apps, and I would look at them, and I just figured, you know, who's the lesser of evils? I guess in some way I could have not voted, but it was actually on election night 2016 when I saw that it looked like he was going to win. For the first time, I watched some of his speeches outside the filter of the media. I read his policies, and I got really angry that night because I went from a kind of a, I just saw Trump as this abrasive guy, and I went from like a personal dislike of Trump to saying, wow, I think this guy actually cares about his country. And this movement isn't all about Trump. He'd probably be the first to tell you, but that was kind of my awakening there. So I want to know, your family, do they share a lot of your views?
Yeah, so actually, my dad was kind of the one that showed me his views. So when I was younger, like I said, I really wasn't involved in politics. I really didn't know much. And then my dad started having conversations with me when I went into high school to kind of open my eyes and get me ready for the real world. And looking more into it, like following what Trump said, following his speeches, his debates, and everything. I think my dad and me are almost 100% identical views.
One of the great things about that was that here I was, a very white young man. My students were ranging from just a little darker than me all the way up to very dark skin. But it wasn't an issue. We were just teacher and students. We had this mutual concern and love for one another. They very much respect teachers over there. And I speak Spanish. I love cultures. I love other cultures. I love history, language. And I feel like we reached a point in this country where we had made so many strides from the civil rights movement in the 60s. And really I think people still are just people, but this government has sown this division. They've emphasized our differences rather than our sameness. And I have to say, looking at you, you're not exactly the poster child of the America First movement or conservatism.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, how do you look at differences? Like, you and I are different in age, we're different in background. I'm more of a European background, but how do you see people, and how do you think people see you in the country right now?
So at the end of the day, in my opinion, people are always people. You look different, but you're still a human being at the end of the day. I honestly think that everybody truly believes that treat everybody equally. But when they see stuff on the filtered media, like you said, the mainstream media, that's a big part of the sway that they can kind of get younger generations. Because in schools, they're required to show CNN. And all my class, like two of my history classes, we show CNN, we show NBC, all the news outlets that are mainstream controlled, and they're showing, this is racist, this is that, and I'm like, look at it. There's always going to be a couple of bad apples in everything you do. I mean, there's never a perfect anything.
Right.
If you just showcase that and not the good, and you'll never see the positive in anything. That's what I think is kind of steering people away from, there actually are people out there that care, and that everybody that looks like that is bad.
I get tired of being stereotyped as well, because I have traveled. I studied Spanish as a second language. I'm fluent. I've been a bilingual teacher. Like I said, I love languages. I love culture. I love history. So I'm judged by my outward appearance sometimes. Tell me, I keep hearing that your generation, high school, especially high school boys or young men, are more conservative than the generation before. Do you see any of that, or what's your experience with your peers?
So I think that, like, when we went to AmFest, Tucker Carlson said it really, really well, that we're a silent majority. I do believe that, at least for me, I try to connect with as many people as possible. But with athletics alone, like my football team, I'm doing track right now as well. Most of the people who are athletes have the conservative viewpoints. Just because they're taught, like, hard work, discipline, all that type of stuff that the conservative, well, not conservative, but that type of movement is trying to push to people, like, to be yourself, be masculine, feminine, the gender roles and everything. But I think if people in sports kind of understand that aspect, that, well, they don't want a guy to come play girls soccer, because that's not fair. So they understand that type of stuff. So I do think that more athletes are more conservative, at least in the high school level. And the professional level, they get paid so much, they just say whatever they want them to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I do, like, in the NFL, like you saw, there's people standing up now. And every time they speak, like CJ Stroud shouted it with "I praise God," and that wasn't a thing before. So I think there's a shift coming, that athletes are going to start standing up and waking up. Obviously, it's going to be the main. There's always going to be some bad ones too. But in high school, I think that we are the silent majority. People, we're just silenced, and that's what I've been trying to kind of get around it's like loopholes, that I'll wear my Trump shirt sometimes, my other shirt sometimes, and then if somebody wants to get mad at me, well, then I'll tell them, you can wear that, you can wear dog collars, you can wear Biden shirt, and you don't get in trouble. So I could do the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, those athletes, actors, entertainers who are standing up, they're the brave ones. It's not brave. Any dead fish can go with the current. And it's strange to me because, like in the 80s was when I graduated in 1987 from high school. In the 80s, man, we were rebels. Like, we were anti-establishment. You watch the Breakfast Club, some of those old movies, and now I see a lot of kids in high school that, well, from high school on up. I'm glad to hear that a lot of athletes are conservative, but we're seeing now that suddenly the counterculture has become the norm, and now we are the counterculture. And I do a show called Counterculture with Nick Natoli. He's a rapper. He's half black, half white, rapper, songwriter, great guy. But we talk to musicians, actors, others who are breaking that mold. And so my hat's off to you for standing up. And I'm the same way. I mean, I am not going to let anybody tell me what to think or what to say or not say. As a football player, and you're a big guy, you're kind of in a certain echelon of society. Do you feel like you're able to have an impact that other people are going to look at you and say, hey, I like this guy's courage?
Yeah, for sure. Me just looking like I do, I don't look 18. So just walking on the hallways, people are like, "Oh, look at this guy." So I already have that, not presence, it's kind of, I look apart than other people. And then when they see somebody that looks apart, kind of maybe sharing their same views, and they don't share them because they don't want to get canceled, and that kind of opens their eyes to, yes, you can speak, yes, you could share your ideas as well. So I see more and more people now, like Grunt sells a really big clothing brand, that has the American flag on every single piece of clothing. And I see a lot more of those as we getting worn around in school. And I never saw that last year, the year before, but now that I've kind of started to wear more of that, openly tell people that, yeah, I'm a Trump supporter. Like, if you don't like me, I really don't care.
Yeah, that's
So
so great.
I see more people kind of at least representing the American flag and standing for it. There's teachers on campus that I was like, that's amazing. Like, they'd make you stand for the pledge, which is, I think it should be. That's perfect. But the teachers will say, yeah, you don't really have to stand for the pledge, and they also are sitting down. Then why are you even in this country if you don't want to stand for the flag?
Yeah, when I was in public school, man, every day we did the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's sad to see where things have gone. Did you watch the Super Bowl? I'm assuming you did, since you're very much into football.
I did. I'm kind of fed up with the NFL right now. It's one of my goals to make it there, but I'm kind of fed up with the political stuff that's going on there.
What did you think of the Black National Anthem and the whole idea of doing that?
I turned it off. I didn't. I don't think there's a black national anthem. I don't think there's a white national anthem. There's no Indian national anthem. I truly, whenever somebody asks me, like, "What are you? Like, what's your race?" I say, "I'm American. I'm no different than you are."
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if I talk about my heritage, I'm about half Scottish, maybe close to half German, some smattering of other things, maybe half grizzly bear. I don't know, but I'm an American. You're an American, and I love the idea of the patchwork quilt, or e pluribus unum, from many one. And what we're seeing, I know, is a Marxist infiltration of the country. And what the Marxists always do is they want to divide. They want to divide and conquer. So back in Russia and the Soviet Union, it was along economic lines. Well, that's been hard here because we're a pretty prosperous nation. So what the new Marxists have done is focused on our differences and intersectionality. Like, the more you're in a so-called minority, the more you're a victim. And it's gotten ridiculous. It's really, we need to get back our country, and we need to get more of your spirit to say, hey, we're Americans. We can be different. We can have different heritage, but we're Americans. So I loathe the idea of a Black national anthem. It's not to say that we shouldn't understand some of the history, some of the culture, but there's this idea of victimhood, and where does it stop? Where does it stop? Like, in my background, the Romans, Julius Caesar, went up to Gaul and practically wiped out the Celts. The English persecuted the Irish and the Scottish. I don't know a lot about Sikh history. I've watched a few things about it, but I know the Sikhs had struggles and had to, fight. I saw a movie about Sikhs fighting against Afghanis who were trying to overcome them. As I recall, there was a small group who defended themselves and really did well. I want to ask you, because I'm curious, and I know Harmeet Dillon a little bit. Harmeet is Sikh. Tell me about that culture. Tell me what the turban means. I understand Sikhs carry a knife with them. I'm just curious. Can you tell me what you know?
Yeah, for sure. So to me, my turban is a crown. It's a representation of being different. Like that's everything to me. My hair, my beard, my turban. If somebody does like on purposely take it off, like there's gonna be a problem with that. But like culture wise, like you were saying, the small group against the Afghans. There's this is written in history. It was 46 versus a million Mughals is what they're called, and our Guru Gobind Singh, who I believe in, was there at that time, and they were trying to get him to surrender, and all his 40 Sikhs, they went out in groups of 3, groups of 4, and scared that they sent that army away. It was 40 against a million. In our scripture, it says "Sava lakhna ek ladao." Like that means for every 125,000 people, one of my Sikhs will win that fight in that time, and then I will take the name as Guru. That's written in our scriptures. That's the thing I think you were talking about there. But no, it was in a time that it was a really bad, dark time when Sikhs came into the world.
The Battle of Chamkaur was a historic battle fought between the Sikhs and the Mughals on December 22nd, 1704. Only 40 Sikhs fought against an army of 10 lakhs of Mughals, led by Wazir Khan. Guru Gobind Singh Ji, the founder of the Khalsa army, led the Sikh army and did not accept defeat by the Mughals. The battle is known for the religious faith of the Sikhs and their valor. 2 of Guru Gobind Singh Ji's sons were caught by the Mughals and bricked alive because they refused to change their faith. The strategy of the Sikhs and their courage in the battle were amazing and resulted in victory with the sacrifice of 40 Sikhs. He used teams of 5 warriors against the outnumbered enemy. Guru Gobind Singh Ji defended the Anandgarh fort and was saved from the Mughals' capture, and the battle is considered one of the deadliest wars in history and the most heroic last stand in history. Gobind Singh stands today in the minds of Sikhs as the ideal of chivalry, the Sikh soldier saint.
There was a lot of wars going on, and it was a religion that was made for warriors, and I think that's been deterred away from us, just because it's a different time now, and also don't think, like a lot of Christians too, and a lot of Muslims, a lot of other people just say they are that religion, but really don't follow it. Which I also think is not a problem, but it's like, well, if you don't truly believe in what was written or what was done, then you're not really doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I think that my religion for me is a big foundation of who I am. I believe that it is a foundation for life and for me, and the kind of the building blocks of who I am and how I kind of shape my life. So I like the Second Amendment. I believe 100%. Since it was a warrior class, like you said, we carry a knife on us at all times. Fortunately, the schools won't allow that, so I can't do it there. But I'm trained in swords, guns, all that other fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. My name means warrior. It's a Celtic name, Kelly. You know, a lot of girls are named Kelly these days. In the Celtic cultures, at least the ancient cultures, women could be warriors too. So, but I believe very much in that, and I believe very much in men being men. And you know, actually, I'm going to get your address and send you this book that I wrote. I have 5 kids, and I started writing it for my older sons. I think it's very interesting. What is the name of the body of scriptures for Sikhism?
It's called Guru Granth Sahib.
I might have you text me the spelling of that later. But you know, I wanted to ask you because I'm really curious. So the U.S. is known broadly as a Judeo-Christian culture. That's a lot of our background, and I love the contribution that Indian cultures have made. And some people look at India as monolithic. I know very well that it's a patchwork of so many languages and cultures and subcultures. But can I ask you, your religion, do you see some consistencies with Judeo-Christian ethics? Do you see some commonalities there?
Yeah. So one of our good close friends, we actually sat down and talked about this. My dad and me and their family. There's a lot of stuff that cross paths, and at the end of the day, in my opinion, I think, in my belief, there's one God. And he sent down all the religions in different areas of the world. That's why this is one centered area, and at different times to kind of send his message to that. Like Christianity, when it was first created, it was also a dark time, and when Jesus came down, it's for peace and to sacrifice himself to clear the people's sins. And I believe that as kind of the foundation baseline of almost all religions kind of tie together. But in Judeo-Christians and the Sikhs, when I sat down and talked about it, there was a lot of stuff that crossed paths and it was really, really similar.
I think there are a lot of commonalities. And when I was in Sri Lanka, I taught Buddhists. The country's predominantly Buddhist, but also Hindus, Muslims, Christians. It was very interesting. We were all able to get along, even though there was some strife in the country that I think has calmed down. I'm going to play a little excerpt from a fathering series that I created. It's an 8-part series. I'm going to give you free access to that. But this is a part with a little clip with my friend Sheriff Mark Lamb talking about young men learning to be real men.
I would say make sure that you as a father are trying to be the best that you can be and be true man. Society is constantly tearing away at toxic masculinity, as they term it. Really what they're trying to do is take the teeth and the claws out of the lions, because what they want is a docile society where women are vulnerable, where men have no capability of protecting what they love or what they cherish, which is in our case, God, family, freedom. And I think it's been detrimental to our society because instead of confronting the hardships of life, they run from them. They abandon their families. They abandon this and that because they've never truly been tested. They've never learned what it's like to be in a fight, to know that life is not easy. And so instead of confronting those challenges and hitting them head on, they run from them. And we've created a very weak and immoral society. The only thing that keeps evil at bay in this world is strong men willing to pick up the sword and the shield. And look, I've been telling this on the campaign trail lately is I love the men who signed the Declaration of Independence. Those men had courage, but I don't know that any of those men actually picked up the sword and the shield. What they did is they went to guys like George Washington and said, hey, we sent this letter to England. We don't think they're going to like this. They were willing to defend the principles of the Declaration of Independence, and that is why we have America.
I think you'll love this series. I'll be happy to give you access to it and send it your way. But, Sheriff Lamb was saying right there, people who are willing to pick up the sword and shield. And tell me, Karambir, how do you apply that? And it's sort of analogous to not being able to bring your knife to school. We live in this polite society where not only violence is looked down upon, but even strong words or asserting your masculinity. How do you express yourself as a warrior in today's world?
That's a really good question. Like the schools don't allow knives, any type of that type of stuff. But I think physicality in general, if you're, especially as a man, you have to be strong to protect yourself and others. So like my stature, I'm sitting at 6'3", 260. Just when I walk with a certain type of confidence in my step that people know to move out the way, or you're not going to stand in front of me and stop me from doing what I want to do. And just kind of, I've done wrestling, I've done taekwondo, jiu-jitsu, and all that type of stuff. So I know I think that a pencil could do as much damage as something else could do in the school. Like if somebody wanted to do something bad, there's always ways to do it. But just like that message, like Sheriff Mark Lamb said, you have to know who you are. Like you can't be confused in this world, because if you are confused, there's people out there who will take advantage of that and succeed themselves and push you down. Like if you're confused on if you're a guy or a girl, which schools are now pushing, like it's okay to do that. You're 100% normal, 100% that. I don't think that's correct, because God created two genders, and there's only two genders in society. You can't, like if in football, you say if you think we're equal, same strengths, we could do the same capability, you put a woman on a football field. I'm no offense to, I can't do some of the stuff they do, but I will. Like if I'm running at you full speed, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It's a different build structure. But just the confidence in myself and my ability to do what I can do, I think helps me a long way in school, just so people know to not mess with me, because I play football. I have a big stature. I walk with confidence. I try to keep my head up, and I let people know that if they step out of line, that you stepped out of line.
Absolutely. I'm 6'4", 240 pounds, and up into my 20s, I was a twig. I was pretty skinny, but I worked hard and put on 50 pounds of muscle. And I have to say, my wife, my family, they love that. It makes them feel safe, and we really need that in our society. I actually interviewed, it's up on realfreedomtalk.com now, but interviewed Bryce Eddy, and I don't know if you had a chance to meet him, but he's trained in a lot of martial arts. He's a tough guy. It was a really interesting show, though, talking about that and what he recommended, different martial arts. But one thing I talk a lot about is just the importance of awareness, just being aware of what's going on around you, because you can, and this is something in the fathering session with Mark Lamb. Basically, the whole session is about how to protect yourself, how to protect your family, and I just think, being aware is so important. And it sounds like, you're walking with confidence, which is great, because you're not going to be an easy target. But, what would you say? So your friend here, he's obviously not as big as you. But what about maybe kids who aren't football players, who don't have that size? Tell me about, like, if there was a young person watching this and they say, well, I'm not Karambir, I'm not 260, I don't have a massive beard, but what would you tell them for what they can do to be more confident?
So confidence is, in my opinion, inner strength and the belief that you have. I think family is really, really important to me. And I also, out of everything, God is what I value the most. And if you do believe in those two things, that you believe that you're protected by God and you have a family system that can back you up, I think that confidence comes to you. Well, just it's there. If your beliefs are right, if you have the right mindset, you could do whatever you put your mind to do. There's people stronger than I am that are a lot smaller than me. You don't have to be 6'3". You don't have to be big. You just have to. It's a level of confidence. And it's a contradicting point, but I think we bring back not bullying, but a kind of a stronger mindset is good. So if somebody's smaller than me and they're walking and I see somebody pick on them, they're gonna know not to ever do that again. But now we see that and you're like, yeah, it's okay, it's fine. Yeah, you don't want to be. You say something out of place, you do that. Yeah, it's okay. Like, you're fine. You didn't do it. You didn't step out of line. It's a lot of comfort that you get in schools nowadays that kind of makes you a target. That, like, yeah, it's okay. You don't have to work out. You don't have to do this. And to the people out there that are watching this that aren't as big as me or you, you have to. There's always people that are out there that are gonna be bad people. They'll target others that are smaller than them. But if you walk with confidence, if you just walk with their head up, that weakness just goes away. Like, they'll their shoulders scrunched with, like, oh, stop avoiding eye contact. Like, oh yeah, that person's scared. If you show fear, then you already lost the battle. Like, if you're smaller than somebody, but you have confidence in your eyes, then the other person starts guessing themselves, like, is this somebody I really want to pick on? And I think, like, when back in the day, everybody had a shotgun in their truck. Nobody was like, no, the school was not a target for school shootings. I also believe that school shootings aren't just an accident. There are targeted things that happen because if you can come after kids, parents will want to say, yeah, the guns are bad. If you come after somebody you love, they will say, yeah, that's not good. So I do believe that school shootings aren't just a random person. Yeah, let's shoot up a school. It's a bad person who was paid off by somebody to go do it, to put a bad image of guns into people's mind.
Yeah, even in the time when I was in high school, you'd see guys from more rural areas that have gun racks in their trucks, sometimes with the guns. And the thing is, in countries where they've banned guns or restricted them, you have people killing others with cars. That's happened here. This guy who ran into a Christmas parade with a car. And in England, knife violence is a big thing. Mark Lamb and I talked about something that Bryce and I also talked about, and that is this old-fashioned idea, you might say, of confronting the bullies and knocking their block off, if necessary. And
100%. Yep.
I personally, I think it's good for them because, look, I don't care how much anti-bullying crap you have in a school, or bring it to the principal or whatever. Bullies are going to be bullies. And if you have a program where you're being bullied and you go to whoever, the counselor or whatever, what bullies are going to do?
They're going to pick on you more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's really good for these guys that get cocky, that are cruel enough to pick on the person who's different, to get their block knocked off. It's not going to kill them.
Yeah, for sure. And to add on to that, in school, because it's a protected area, that there's no such thing as a fight. You can't fight somebody. There's anti-bullying all over the place. And the victim always gets like, yeah, it's okay. You're fine. You're good. You don't have to change anything. They're just bad. They're just bad. And a bully, I don't think it's a good thing to do, but it's a bad habit. And then when they step out in the real world, where it's not protected by teachers, they talk to the wrong guy in a wrong tone, and it's over. Because you don't know who you're talking to in the real world. You go up to somebody, push them, like, yeah, I'm bigger than you. That person, you don't know how he's gonna react. In a school, if you do that, yeah, it's okay, don't do it again, you're fine, you're this or that. I do think that they do get something back, they'll understand not to do it again. Like, yeah, people will strike me back if I do something bad.
Yeah, and we didn't used to hear about school shootings. At least they were exceedingly rare. But kids could vent their frustrations. I watched a number of fights in high school. I was in one or two myself, and I think really you're seeing school shootings, you're seeing aggression, you're seeing kids that get so wound up, they get obsessed with expressing that power and that rage because it's constantly blunted. So it gets built up to the point of desperation. I know we're seeing a lot of this with the transgender community right now being very, very violent. And I'm all for, counseling, talking things out, being a peacemaker as much as you can. But frankly, you got to have a pressure valve sometimes. You have to be able to confront the people who are tormenting you. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
I believe this. It's a saying I've heard a lot of times from a lot of people. A real man is able to hold a baby and kill somebody the same day. You have to have, if something happens, you have to protect your family. You have to do that. And if somebody needs caring, you're also supposed to be able to provide that. And I think the people who are too soft-spoken, that can't protect somebody else, or if they're all they do is fight and can't care for somebody, like you have to be balanced in the world now, especially, that you can go out with your family and have fun, and somebody tries to do something, have the ability to protect somebody, because you can't run and leave your family behind. I don't think that's right at all. There's also a saying my dad told me that strong men make good times make weak people, weak people make hard times make strong people. And I think we're in that cycle that good people made easy times, and those easy times are making weak people. And it's not, especially like a lot of people are conservatives at our schools. They don't like what's going on. They're also not strong enough to speak up and say, hey, like, this is wrong. You can't do that. They're like, okay, well, it's not going to affect me. I'll just let it be. And they kind of get everything given to them. My dad makes me work for everything I have. But there's people that haven't worked a single day in their life, and they get everything just given to them. And there's going to be a rude awakening if the economy keeps doing what it's doing, like, you won't be able to do anything, especially the people who can't work.
There's always going to be evil in the world. And I don't care how much you want to, try to take the hostility out of people. And it's funny to me that a lot of these people on the left think that, we're going to support Islam, we're going to support Gaza and, gays for Palestine. They have no idea that these cultures don't tolerate the LGBTQ stuff. They would go to those areas and be killed. They would be killed.
100%. Like the fall of the big empires in history was partially because of the reason that LGBTQ started coming into play. Like the Roman Empire's main thing was on the inside. It wasn't an exterior empire that made them fall. It was within themselves. That's what's kind of happening in the U.S. is where it's not a true civil war, but it's to the point where it's just such a separation that you can't really get anything done to protect our borders. Like Texas, for example. It's not like, I hope somebody does that in Arizona, because then people will actually start doing something. Like in Texas, those people sitting on the borders with the tractors, the Canadian trucks that came down in tractors. I thought that was so cool, because I remember when people from America went up there to Canada when they had the trucker strike, and now they came down to the Texas border, and I see videos all the time where tractors is putting up hay bales, putting up poles and everything. So I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, you have a fundamental right to protect yourself. You have a fundamental right to protect others. I think it's despicable. This Marine veteran, Daniel Penny, went to protect people on the subway, used, I think, acceptable force. Unfortunately, the person died, but he simply restrained the person, and yet he got arrested, and he's being, persecuted for wanting to be a protector. I'm going to play you a real quick video. This was years ago now. We moved from Bend, Oregon to Arizona. This was shortly before we moved, but I was out at a grocery store with my two sons, oldest sons at the time. Now I have three more from a second tour of duty, you might say. But we went outside and we saw two people running across the parking lot, and two guys who were obviously security, maybe not in the best shape, chasing them down. So I went and helped them. And here's a little video that one of my sons got.
Oh! Don't move.
Come on, man.
Nothing.
Girl.
Stop.
Yo.
Call
oh my God! Come on.
I actually I studied a little Krav Maga. I took them down with a move where you basically grab their arm and then push down on their shoulder. It was appropriate force. The security were thanking me. Actually, the police came and thanked me. But unfortunately, I think that was probably 2016 or 2017. But unfortunately, you have to be careful now. because if somebody gets hurt or whatever. My oldest son was, I want to say, gosh, maybe 15, 16 at the time. And he started chasing the guy with me. He's embarrassed about this, but kind of an awkward swing at the guy and missed. But, when the security came along, my son was talking about taking a swing at him. They said, no, don't. You didn't do anything. Like, they didn't want him to get in trouble. But, I think it's important. And we're starting to see this, Karambir. We've seen, particularly in California and some areas, maybe Chicago, shoplifters just going in with impunity, robbing the place and walking out. But we're starting to see people respond to that. I think it might have been Indian store owners who started beating a guy with a stick. Tell me your thoughts about actually what some people might consider vigilantism. But, when you see people robbing stores, shoplifting, what would be your response?
So, kind of along the lines you said that you don't know how much trouble you can get in for doing something that you're trying to do right. But in my opinion, trust, not stealing, are foundations that God told us not to do, and I will stand on that. If I see a shoplifter, I'm gonna stop him. Like, it's no questions asked. That's not right to do. And because when, like you said, in California, they just are allowed to do it, so they don't know that's bad. They just do it because they're okay, so they don't stop me. I can keep doing it. And if I'm a store owner and somebody comes in my store try to rob me, they're not going to walk out of there. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important. I have a chapter in my guidebook for a son talking about these issues and everything from how to deal with bullies to being in dangerous situations. I think it's important to first try to restrain somebody. Don't go up and just take a swing at a shoplifter or hit him over the head. You and I, though, we have the advantage of being pretty large. So that guy, once I got him under me, he wasn't going to move. But honestly, I think people like Daniel Penny or people who've been wrongly convicted for doing the right thing, I think their communities need to start standing with them. I mean, I don't know where Daniel lives, his neighborhood, his church, whatever it might be. But I think they need to surround somebody like that and say, oh, no, you're not going after this person. Our community's not going to allow that. Like this fella who tipped over the satanic statue in Iowa. It's as if the minorities rule. And we know a majority of people would be terribly offended, maybe even frightened, disturbed by that image. We are a nation that was born out of freedom from religion, but freedom of religion, but a real acknowledgement. I mean, in God we trust is on our money. Our judiciary system, our Department of Justice has become so compromised, so evil, using the law as a weapon against people for political persecution. I think we need to start surrounding those people, and communities need to start pushing back and saying, no, you're not going to convict this guy for tipping over that statue. In fact, that statue is offensive to everything we stand for. I mean, you talked about having the courage to go into school wearing a Trump shirt or something. I mean, I'm taking this one step further and saying, if we're going to somehow avoid a civil war, we're going to have to find the courage to stand up.
I 100% agree with that. Here's my opinion on this topic. I think we should do that, but I also think that people don't have the capability of doing that and providing for their family. I believe that everybody is created equal. And I believe that slavery is still a thing, except it's all the people who work are slaves to the government now.
Yeah.
All the people who work, teachers especially, they work long hours. They have to get a second job in the summer, and they could barely get food and a nice house for their families. And they're still trying to work overtime and do extra jobs to provide. And I think if you're stuck on that and then you have 2 days off to spend with your family because you get to school at 6 and leave at 5, I don't think they have the capability or the bandwidth to even go help support somebody they want to support. I believe that the government has indoctrinated everybody for that works to kind of have to work to live. If you don't work, you're not going to be able to provide, have a house, have a car, get things for your kids if you want to. That if you do stop working and start protesting, well, we're going to not do anything about it, and you're just going to lose money, and then what are you going to do? So I 100% believe that people should start doing it. I just don't know how they can do it and still provide, because if the community gets together, there can be solutions to this problem. But the question is now, how many people are willing to sacrifice their jobs, that comfort of a paycheck, to support their families, to support somebody else?
I've been on the Eric Metaxas show twice, and he wrote a book called Letter to the American Church that's now come out as a documentary. And that's one of the big themes there, is that you have to be willing to put those things on the line. You have to understand what's happening and get to the point where you say, look, I'm going to have to be willing to make sacrifices. By the way, speaking of people being tax slaves, we're not even protecting our own border, and we're dumping money into Ukraine. I think it's patently obvious that politicians have financial concerns over there. There's money laundering. And now we're giving free money to illegal immigrants. You're a family of immigrants. Most of us are, at least going back some, however many years. We are getting to a point where we're being robbed, denied life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and paying for agendas to destroy this country. So I'm all there with you. Like, I think the answer, Karambir, is that people are going to have to find that courage to stand up and stop finding excuses for bowing out, for not getting involved. Because if you hide from this, they're going to come for you. They're going to come for you.
No, 100%. Yeah, the courage, I think, is, like I said, the hard times make strong people. I think we're in that cycle that this is a hard time, and people are going to start having to have thick skin, having to have the courage to make sacrifices for the greater good. I hope, hopefully sooner than later, because right now how things are looking, it's not looking pretty for sure. We're in Arizona, like you saw, and if you heard the news in New York, they kicked out high school students to bring in illegal immigrants to let them stay in a school. Now you're sacrificing the young generation's education, which I still believe is also corrupt, to bring in illegal people that have nothing to do that will help us. And the southern border, especially in Arizona, now the amount of drugs cartels coming through is human trafficking. Like that I guess that's not a problem for us if Ukraine matters more.
I wish I had known you when we lived in Arizona. Just days short of a year ago, we moved from Tucson, Arizona, to Tennessee. And in Tucson, a lot of people know about this in Arizona, but I was arrested twice for standing up and speaking. Not doing anything violent. I've been railroaded by the system. Tucson is a communist hellhole. There's a lot of corruption going on there, government officials getting payoffs from the cartels and such. But my point in saying that, and I got cancel cultured out of a good job, and actually I was editor-in-chief for a medical publication, and I've known much of what there is to know and understood it on a deeply scientific level about the COVID-19, and I was canceled out of my job. And the reason I bring this up is I have paid the price. I'm willing to keep paying the price. I'm still here. They destroyed my business. We had a coffee shop. Like I said, I was canceled out of a job. I've been unjustly arrested twice, and I'm still fighting. In fact, the second arrest was about standing up for kids who were being abused with these horrible COVID policies that's now morphed into CRT and transgenderism. And instead of knuckling under, they arrested me, tried me, falsely convicted me, trying to shut me up. I literally had a very corrupt judge say, yeah, you're going to have to be silent about this stuff and scrub it off your social media. I've only gotten louder, and I'm going to Washington, D.C. next month to hold these people to account. I'm going to play a video for you real quick about that. This Papa Bear is headed to Washington, D.C. next month to fight for all the parents targeted and persecuted simply for expressing concern for their kids. I'm bringing parental advocates and parents along as I present evidence and testimonies to members of Congress. Our goal is to get a committee hearing so that the perpetrators of this tyranny will be held responsible and we can finally get justice. Now, if you'd like to help, please go to realfreedomtalk.com/give or go to givesendgo.com/freedomtalk. Please help us go to DC and fight for all the parents and kids who've been targeted. Well, I think your parents should be proud of you because you're a real man. You're a young man. You're willing to stand up for what's right. You're willing to stand up for the truth. And, they talk about toxic masculinity, and I reframe it as tonic masculinity. Like, real men are just like you say, they can hold a baby, but then go out and kill an evil person or an enemy. And I think even at your young age, you embody that. And it's so important. Like, men are the tonic or the medicine that the world needs right now. And I like to say there's a war on men, but that's okay. We can handle it because we're men.
Yep.
And I have to, really compliment you for your courage and standing up. I'm 54. I'm largely fighting for your generation, for my kids' generation. But I think we have a lot of hope in people like you, because let's go back to that story. I can't pronounce the man's name, but the 40-some Sikh who stood up, and you say one warrior is worth, what do you say, 1,500?
No, 125,000.
125,000, even better. And I think this is such a great lesson. It's something I want to unpack, and I'd actually like to put an excerpt in post-production here of that movie. I think that's such an amazing concept, because here we're looking at you, Karambir, and you have extraordinary courage. You're willing to swim against the tide, and you are embodying that right now. You're living that. So people say, whether or not we're the silent majority, if you look at the people who are actually willing to take the hits, who are on the front lines, that is a small minority of people, because I see a lot of people conservative virtue signaling. They got the Molon Labe stickers on their trucks or whatever, but they're not standing up. So I don't know. I just made this connection in my mind. That's a beautiful thing. Like, you have immense power. And I think that's such a great story to weave in here. I'm really impressed by that. Yeah. It's a great story for everybody of every culture to learn. And I want to say this, and this is for the benefit of people who are Christian and maybe think that people of other religions, they're somehow lower or beneath you. Sorry for getting theological here, but there's the book of Romans, which Paul wrote from Rome. He talked about something that it just blew my mind when I read this. For as many have sinned without law will also perish without law, and as many have sinned in the law will be judged by the law. For not the hearers of the law are just in the sight of God, but the doers of the law will be justified. For when Gentiles who do not have the law by nature do the things in the law, these, though not having the law, are a lot of themselves, who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or else excusing them in the day when God will judge the secrets of many men by Jesus Christ. So what this is saying, one of the ways I interpret this, is that God has put this consciousness, this sense of right and wrong in all people. And, Paul refers to the Gentiles because the Jews called everyone else who wasn't a Jew by this name. But what this is saying is, when God judges all peoples, he's not going to look at necessarily, I was a part of this church or this denomination or this religion. He's going to look at, did you follow that conscience that he put in you? Are you doing good works? Are you, you're kind of a law unto yourself. So people get this idea that only the Jews are right with God, or only the Christians. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised because, and I've been surprised, because in being able to travel to different parts of the world, I've seen some commonalities there. And I do believe that God is working through a lot of different people that you might be surprised. So I don't know. I just want to bring that about and say to anybody who's Christian, I think, and I talk about this in my guidebook because I have a whole chapter on religion. I think you could learn a lot from somebody from another religion. And I think humility is a really good place to start.
100%.
I'm fascinated by your story. I'm fascinated by your culture and your faithfulness to God. And I do believe we worship the same God.
Yes, sir.
Well, Karambir, thank you so much. I'd love to have you back on. Thank you for being a young man of courage. I'm looking forward to sending you my book and giving you access to the Fathering series. Tell us, before we go, tell us about your plans and what you think your future looks like. What are you headed toward?
Well, as of right now, like I said at the beginning, I've signed already to go play football in Indiana. So that's going to be the next chapter for the 4 years at least, to go play football there. I'm going to bring what I'm doing here there as well, just to try to represent who I am, my views at school, like openly. I would love to be a part of something bigger, at least because I'm going to be here till beginning of August in Arizona. So if you're ever down in Arizona, or if I can get connected with anybody in Arizona, I'd love to be a part of something like that. But no, I just want to keep working and doing what I'm doing to kind of wake people up. And I think it's working as well.
Fantastic. You're a warrior. We need you. Indiana's not actually that far, and we have some friends up there, so maybe sometime I'll have a chance to come up and watch you play. Karambir, really a pleasure to meet you. We'll definitely keep in touch, and you're so needed in this day and age. Thank you for your courage and your commitment to truth.
Thank you. You as well. You're doing a great deal of good work, and we both got to keep doing what we're doing, make the sacrifices that are needed to be made, and hopefully takes a turn for the best.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk again. Thanks for being on Freedom Talk.
Thank you for having me on here. Thank you. You have a good one.
Citizen journalism's on the rise, but why is that? Well, it's because the mainstream media is full of propaganda and lies That's why I'm working really hard for you every day to bring you great information and to fight for the things that are important to you. So if you're tired of the lamestream media and politicians who make big promises but don't do a lot of delivering, invest in spreading truth by making a monthly recurring donation at realfreedomtalk.com/give.